This envelope's looking a little wrinkly. I think we need a new one for this. I think it's been handed to me like
A bunch
too
of
many times.
Yeah,
but think about the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Note to self, get a crisp new envelope.
Yeah, Mike asked about that actually recently.
We can
Said,
mail this. They'll just look like this when it gets
This
to the
is a
other side.
reused envelope.
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah. Oh, it's quite.
Yeah,
it's
we're
quite-
saving the
It's
environment.
the same one.
We'll use it for mailing somewhere because, like I
It's the
said,
same envelope we've always used.
Oh.
always.
Think of the history.
It's just like, his trusty blades.
It's like the trusty blade.
They're not the same.
I heard it's a new
Yeah,
blade. Yeah,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
outraged when I heard that.
Yeah. You know,
I'm
Mike's
out of the
trusty
loop on this
blades.
one.
You know, to open all the packages. They're different blades, I hear.
Yeah,
Okay.
unbelievable. It absolutely crushed
That's
me when I
important to
turned it
know.
on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you blind test? Yeah, I close my eyes every time I go to sleep. In fact, I dream about blind testing.
Oh, do you?
I think this is a viewer
it's
question,
so
right?
important.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
I jest because it's I know where it goes on this one. It's a very it tends to be a controversial subject, and for some people, kind of like cables and things. For some people, they're just so, what do you call it, into it, in terms of it has to be done this way,
Right.
and almost like a strict code of testing something has to be done a certain way, and typically it's the blind test is brought up as being supposedly the de facto standard, but
Yep.
the people who are doing the blind test typically aren't trained for looking for what the hell they're supposed to be looking for.
If you tell somebody what to expect, now they have an intrinsic bias on what they're expecting. So maybe they don't notice a difference. Or maybe they wouldn't have noticed a difference before you told them this thing. And so you told them whatever you're supposed to expect or see this change, and you might influence the outcome. And in fact, in most cases, you will.
Yeah, I guess I should quantify what I said before, is that the fact that we are discussing blind testing concerning listening to audio
Right.
devices, not, in terms of, we're not talking about drug tests where you have a placebo. We're not talking about, is it Pepsi or Coke, and even that's subjective. I mean, which one do you like more? Well,
That's easier to test, though.
that's simple,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
give them two things
so much
and say,
easier to test,
which
yeah.
one do you like? Well, that's a personal preference, right? But when you're talking about actually saying, okay, can you hear a difference? Now, if you just throw somebody in the middle of a room and say, can you hear this? Most people are probably not going to hear it
Right.
because they don't know what the hell they're listening for,
Right.
right? If I came into a room, an unknown room, and I had no knowledge of what I'm supposed to be listening for, and you say, well, what do you hear? Which is basically what a blind test is assuming. You're assuming the person could answer the question. What do you hear, right? You're sitting in a room. What are you going to tell somebody if there's nothing going on in the room? I don't hear anything,
Right.
right? I don't hear anything. I hear myself. That's it. All right, maybe you can hear the fan running on the HVAC. Maybe you can hear a car outside. But in the room, right, where the test is occurring, the answer is, I don't hear anything. And you're not knowing what it is. You're not educated as to what you're listening for. The test is null. It doesn't take into account the fact that you don't know what you're trying to hear. Now, the opposite would be true if someone was trained.
To some extent. But humans have significant intrinsic biases, and the vast majority of people are entirely unaware of them.
But you can't eliminate that, really.
Well,
You could do what you can to mitigate it, but eliminating is probably not
listening,
possible.
it's tough.
yeah.
With listening, it's very, very challenging. And the average
Because
consumer,
their hearing is biased through their life,
I don't
their life
think
experience.
the average consumer is aware of how big an impact so many other factors are on the perception of sound. The temperature of the room, the comfort and well-being of the individual at the time, the track you're playing, the tracks you've played before all have an impact on the sound, how the person's
Your
going
life
to perceive
experiences.
the sound at that time. Yeah, I'm saying even from one person to one person over a week or a month, what factors might influence how they perceive the sound of something.
Yeah.
On a show floor, they're going to hear something differently than they will at their home. It could be the exact same system, exact same setup. It could sound exactly the same. To them, it's going to sound different, most likely, most of the time, because you have all outside factors. You were just walking in a show. You just listened to a bunch of different headphones.
Imagine
You just
doing a
talked with your
blind test
friends.
show.
I mean, there's a million different things going on.
You
It's
can't
really
do
hard.
that. Blind.
And with headphones, the challenge with blind tests on headphones is they all feel different for the most part.
Right.
They fit a little different. And this sounds strange to a lot of people, but I've seen this over and over again. I take measures to ensure I'm mitigating my biases. And that doesn't mean that they're all perfect, but in general, steps
Well,
are
so
taken.
do we all.
And
Because we kind of know our biases.
I've seen
You
over and
learn-
over.
You learn for the way we do things. You learn it over time. What we know what our biases are, and
Right.
that's okay. You know,
Of course.
it's kind of like I
I've
was
never
just-
met anyone that isn't biased.
Last night I was happened to be on YouTube and I was catching some old clips from Clint Eastwood movies, you know, and he's like, you know, man's got to know his limitations, you know, and that's a good saying. It's
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is. It's true, you know, and if you understand that, whether you're technically minded or not, if you understand your limitations and you understand your biases, then I think it helps a lot to be able to compare things, you know, whatever it is. The water filter you just put in the damn thing, you know, for taste, because taste, hearing, smell, all our senses are all subjective.
Right.
Which brings up another point, right? Listening to music is subjective, right? You can't take that away. You could try to make an objective test out of listening as much as you want, as much as possible. Try to make the test objective. But the reality of it is, you're testing something that's subjective,
Right.
you know?
Well,
And-
there's another thing here. There's like a time element. Usually it's like 1 minute of this, 1 minute of that. But I find like even after like listening to stuff for over a long time, you can't like listen to something for like a minute and then be like, "This is the new best I've
not
ever
to
heard."
concentrate on,
You gotta-
not trying to concentrate on
Yeah,
something you're
you
trying
can't
to
do
hone
it.
in on.
It takes
Yeah.
time. You got to
Yeah.
listen to it for a while.
Yeah.
And you find the people with a lot of experience listen to a lot of high end gear. They always say that. They're always like, "Yeah, it's
You have
gonna."
to
I give
live
it a
with
few days or a
You
week
have to
or
live
2
with
weeks.
it. Yeah,
You can't do it in 5 minutes.
no.
One thing I found interesting in this blind test thing, I thought that it would make sense to do blind testing, and it's really challenging to do yourself. I think, like if I knew what I changed, it's hard for me to blind test. It's harder than it is for somebody else.
Yeah.
So typically, what I do is I give two headphones that look the same to somebody. Say, here you go. Tell me what you think. What's different about these two? And
Yeah, in
they
fact-
don't know what
In
changed.
fact, we should cover that here. We do that here internally.
Yeah, of course, all the time.
You know, when we were doing, was the TC driver?
TC.
Yeah. Oh, we did that a bunch.
You gave us a number of
Yeah,
iterations.
4
and-
changes.
Yeah,
Here you go.
four
You
Tell
were
me
the
what's
only one that
different.
knew it. They all
Yeah.
looked. They were all 1266 frame sets. We just threw them on our heads and
Right.
decided which one, what direction we wanted to go in that one, and for final tuning, right? I mean,
Right.
and once we all came to agreement, that was it.
And oddly enough, both times, your opinions on all the different models aligned with my own, and both of yours aligned with each
Yeah,
other.
right.
So it
Because
seems
we're
to mostly work.
experienced listeners.
And
We're
we all did it
experienced.
separate. We just did it
Right.
on our own time. Just
Yeah.
at some point, listen to this.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then they were all labeled underneath the
Yeah,
ear pads. It was
A,
like,
B, C,
oh
or
look,
whatever
you
the
picked
hell
the
it
same
was.
one.
Yeah,
I was like,
right.
hey, we're going with that.
Yeah, we didn't like talk to each other. Go, oh, which
Yeah.
one do you like? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't need to do that. You know,
Yeah,
we don't
right,
need to do
of
that.
course.
We know what we like. We know what we're doing.
Well, there's no reason for you to
And-
be biased.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't hear a
Right.
difference, you're
Yeah,
not going to
right.
be like,
Well,
oh,
if it
I
sounds like
think
shit,
maybe.
we're not going to sell it,
Right,
right?
sure.
We want it to sound good. So I mean, the reality of it is, we're all after the same thing, you know,
Yeah.
which I think is really the whole. When you think about it, the big picture, right? Aren't audiophiles all after the same thing? Can't we just all get along and understand?
Well,
that
it's a different
We're all
target.
listening
You're after
to
good
music, trying to listen to
sound,
music.
but it's always a different target. People are looking for different things that they perceive to be good sound
They
or
think
better.
they do, but I think they really appreciate the same things.
It's
we
close.
kind of got rid of all the variables too. Because I mean, we were running it at the same time in the same room with the same equipment on the same headphones. So, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, same time of day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of the factors are mitigated. And honestly, neither of you would really care
Oh,
if
yeah.
there wasn't a difference or
Right.
you couldn't hear a difference.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be scared to tell me that, which is
No.
more often than not, people always will tell you there's a difference. If they can't hear it, people are often nervous to say, I can't hear a
But
difference.
well, it's because they're forced to make a decision.
Yeah.
Right.
So they'll make the wrong
Yeah, it's like
one.
going to the optometrist,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
or two.
Yeah.
Like they're telling you basically,
know.
is this one better than this one? That's a lot easier than listening to a bunch of different headphones.
Yeah.
It's like, why
And
would I be
still,
wasting your time? with
People
this?
think that's tricky. A lot of
Well-
times people are like, and they just pick. Two. I have no idea, but two.
I haven't been to one of those in a long time, but I see other people getting tested, and I've looked into the machines.
Yeah.
And you guys look into when you do that, and it's just like, talk about subjective. You know how easy it'd be to screw that test up.
Yeah, people are super worried
Just the
about
way
it.
you asked the question. That some people can't answer a question the way it's
Yeah,
asked.
yeah.
It has to be worded differently to get the answer out of them.
People are reluctant
right?
to say, do it over, or I didn't tell a difference, or can we try again? Especially if you do that over and over and
What
over
I'm getting
again.
is, can you imagine if people get the wrong script for glasses because they answered
probably
a
happens,
question
yeah.
wrong?
Sure. It's
know?
only off by a little bit, so.
I don't know about that. I mean,
It's probably fine.
well,
Well,
maybe,
yeah,
okay.
Maybe we
I
need to
hope
talk
it's
to an
only off.
optometrist
Yeah, well,
about
that
that.
little bit can really screw you if you wear those for 3-4 years. you
maybe.
know. Now your eyes are even worse than better. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of funny because, again, it's a subjective test, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's objective in the sense that which one looks better.
Which one do you think you could
you
see
know?
better with?
But but at that time, given the way you're looking at it, I mean, you don't know, do you? You don't know.
You're guessing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a really
Yes,
minor difference.
yeah,
and it's,
right.
They do call it an exam. It's not a quiz.
Well, that's true. It's a real test.
It's a real test.
Yeah, and your test results are you're going to pay us $500 for these glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Like them or not.
Yeah, you are kind of screwed once you have your glasses.
Pretty much, yeah. So you better answer them right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, I mean, listening to audio isn't supposed to be a test. It's not supposed to be a test. It's
No.
it's not even a freaking quiz. It's a life experience. It's something you enjoy, and sure.
So effectively, do we blind test? And sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have our methods of doing it
Yeah.
that work for us.
We don't do like a personal ABX test because honestly, I've never found any value to that.
No.
It doesn't seem to be helpful to convince myself. I don't need to do that.
I was messing around with power chords on the amps.
No.
And I came up with a list of probably 25, 30 reasons why the blind test was not going to work. All right? And the main one was, and again, this is knowing the differences and still having a hard time saying, if I didn't know what I was listening for, how would I hear this? What would pick it out for me? And I came up with all kinds of reasons why it wasn't working. Would be the education part of it. You needed to be educated into hearing the difference first. You had to hear the difference first in order to know what it was.
Oh, yeah. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're listening for, which brings me back to that, you can't pick it out.
Well,
It's just like standing in an empty room. You really don't know what you're
There's a
listening
lot
for.
of things like that, though. There's a lot of things that when you look at something after you know what you're supposed to see, it's so glaringly obvious. But you try to explain it to someone else, and I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Right. Until they see
Right.
it,
I don't
hear
really understand it,
touch
right?
taste it.
But the strange thing is, then you see it, and you're like, "Oh, how could I have not seen
Yeah,
that
yeah.
before?" It's so incredibly obvious.
It's
after the
funny
fact.
how we
That's how it
actually,
works,
I
right?
think we train ourselves in the subjective, right? We are subjective. We learn subjectively. It reminds me of the guys that try to describe wines. They got their own damn vocabulary, right? And it's like, it kind of blows my mind reading that stuff because it's like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, to me it's over the top. But, I imagine a lot of people who are technical think the same thing about us when they read what we talk about. They think
Yeah,
the
it is
same
like
thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I
same
mean?
thing.
It's like, Jesus, a bunch of gibberish,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just give me the freak response and give me the freaking specs.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
sure.
I know everything I need to know.
yeah.
And I understand that. I understand it. It's just like the guy that drinks Schmitz beer in Europe, if they even have Schmitz anymore, and doesn't care about the high-end
Well,
stuff.
sometimes it sounds a little
You know?
hokey, right? People are coming up with these crazy terms to describe music and audio, and it's like, this doesn't sound like a real palatable thing, or I don't feel like I would perceive the same change that this guy's describing.
Yeah, right. And they
Yeah.
won't. They might not.
No,
Why not?
no, it's you got to really a perfect example. My friend, I was trying to just tell him the problems with his TV, the video. It was having motion problems. So it was
artifacts?
Yeah, yeah. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see it. But I have to physically go to his house and show him exactly on the screen what I was talking about. And he had to buy a new TV then.
Because all of a sudden now
Yeah,
it's
no,
driving
that's
you
all I
freaking
could
nuts.
see is
Yeah.
this. I'm like, yeah.
And that's the human brain at work, though. It's able to schmoo that over, congeal that mess
Yeah,
that
you didn't
saw.
even see it at all.
And to some people, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. But to you, it's like driving you
Yeah,
effing
yeah, it's like-
nuts,
it's
giving
like-
you a
yeah,
headache
yeah.
watching it. Yeah. And
Well,
it's
with
just-
headphones, though, that's a real big issue. Because we've done this a few times. Well, I mean, me specifically, I do this all the time. But the fit of headphone is absolutely critical in the perception of the sound, which most people would disagree with entirely. But I didn't really understand or believe it myself. But I've seen it over and over and over again. You make a change to the fit, people always say, oh, there's a frequency response different. Oh, there's something changed in this frequency. They always give you a specific range, or they feel like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They perceive there being a sound difference. And you can measure it. They don't measure it different. I've done this over and over. They do not measure different. People say, oh, I feel like it sounds different in this range. And they're dead sure of it. But it's the same headphone with a different ear pad shape or different fit or different clamping
talking minor
pressure.
changes.
Yeah, yeah.
Like really, really minor change.
Yeah.
And so it shifts something minorly.
Right.
You could measure it over and over again. Doesn't matter how you could shift it slightly on the head when you measure it. Doesn't measure anywhere near the
I don't think
difference
we
you're
would
describing.
notice it. Like if he changed fit on us, I I don't think we give
No,
a crap.
no, yeah, no.
We're so
'cause-
used
yeah,
to wearing
yeah.
it all different ways.
You could
To
ignore
us, we just
how
know
it
the
fits on your
sound
head,
of
how
it.
it feels.
Yeah, I
but a lot
ignore
of people
fit.
can't. A lot
Yeah.
of people, if
Yeah, I
the
ignore
fit,
fit, too.
if the fit is different than they're expecting,
Yeah.
it sounds different, and it really does to them.
Clamping
They think,
force
"Oh,
is big,
this
I
doesn't
think.
sound good," is
I
what they
think
say.
that's until they get used to it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
They can't get
People
used to
said
it.
that.
But
That was the
initial
biggest thing.
impressions.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, there's low clamping force, like on
Right.
Diana. They're like, I don't like that. And I was like, I've never heard that before. But then I heard
Right.
a few people say it. And because they're used to having high
They think it's
clamping
going to fall
force.
off their head or
Yeah,
something.
they're used to
They're
having
afraid.
it
Yeah.
really tight
Yeah,
on their head.
Until you get used to
Yeah,
it.
they
Oddly
get used to
enough,
it.
there's a right amount of clamping force. If it's too low, a lot of people are uncomfortable. If it's too high, a lot of people are uncomfortable. You would think the lower the better a lot of times, but no.
Well, the
it
range
needs
in
to be just
between is
right.
quite wide.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
industry,
It's
Yeah.
huge.
It's
yeah,
quite wide.
yeah. Some are really clampy.
Most take the clamp side of it
Yeah.
and just because
Yeah.
they got to create seal. They
Yes.
need a seal for
It's
base.
safer.
So they have in order they do have an FR problem because
Oh,
if they
yeah.
don't
Yeah,
make a
yeah,
seal,
yeah.
you got no base.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of headphones they got to have a
But I'm saying,
a heavy clamp.
even when you have a complete seal on our headphones, if you change the fit marginally,
Yeah, I hear
you
you.
shift the force
Yeah,
somewhere else,
sure.
people perceive the sound as entirely different. They would tell you it's a different headphone, different driver. and It's not.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds the same. You measure it, it sounds the
same
same.
here.
And they tell you, oh, this is different. What'd you change?
I think they're just not accustomed to the fit and the sound.
Yeah.
Right.
The whole experience.
It's getting used to
But
it.
that's the
Yeah,
challenge.
just
So
get
if you're
used to it.
comparing headphones back to back, how they fit on your head, they're probably going to influence your perception of the sound.
up front,
Yeah, you
initially.
spend a lot of time with it, maybe not.
which brings us back.
But that's
to the,
challenging too if you
which
spend a
brings
lot
us
of
back
time
to
with a
the point. You
headphone.
need to spend time on it. Any of this stuff, it's any subjective, anything that you do subjective, you need to spend that time on. You need to educate yourself as to what you're dealing with. This
Yeah.
goes for pros too. This goes for people that review shit all day long too. How many reviewers? You don't know how many reviewers over the years I've worked
Oh,
with.
yeah.
that I have to physically hold their hand, and I'm not knocking them. They just never dealt with products like that. I'm talking in the cable realm or anything. You know, it doesn't matter. It's like you basically they're not accustomed to it. And I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing. They're good at what they do, but they've never done it like this before.
Yeah.
And it's especially with us when we come at it from a different approach than most of the general,
Yeah.
manufacturers of headphones. There's a lot to understand. There's a lot more to understand than just throw them on your head and talk about it.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem because we deal with them every day, so you're just used to it.
Yeah,
So I mean,
right.
really used
And
to
our
it.
customers are too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, long term, our customers are great. They stick around. They keep coming back for more. They wish we had more models to buy. Type thing,
We
you
kind
know?
of see the opposite side of the spectrum every now and then too, though. People bring their own headphone in, or it's a modified headphone, and they spend a lot of time with it. They had it for years, and that is the sound that they want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's
so they
very
can't hear
specific.
past that.
Right. No,
So
they
it's a
can't.
challenge. You can't listen to something for 10 years because that's what you want to hear then. A
They'll,
lot of times.
they'll tell you what they hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Past their headphone, but
Right,
they
yeah.
don't like it.
You're right.
Right.
They don't like it
Because
yeah.
they're used to what they're used
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
I've the few people I've met like that, I think they have very specific hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
something about their hearing system for whatever reason, right? Because when we listen to what they're listening to,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah, I
Not
don't hear what
usually,
they're
yeah.
listening for.
But they
yeah.
like it, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But it ain't what we're at. Well, it's not anything we would like, which seems to say there's something acutely different with their hearing.
Something strange
You
going
know,
on.
yeah, and that's how they're compensating for it with that, and that's fine. Which means they would never like anything we like.
Yeah.
And again, that's fine. Get it.
Yeah,
I
there's
get that.
plenty of diversity in the headphone field. That's
Well,
the
not
point,
only that,
right?
not everyone's hearing could be perfect. We're all born differently. We don't know. We all have, and we also all have unique traits and talents
And experiences.
and life experiences. And the
Yep.
brain is a very powerful thing, and that's the one thing that people who are for or against blind testing will pick out how the brain could be so easily fooled. Therefore, blind test.
Yeah.
Well, the brain also
Well-
knows. The brain also controls what you like and don't like too.
Well, yeah.
So, in what sense would it be accurate to try to fool the brain to fool itself, so to speak? Right? Aren't you trying to do that?
Well-
aren't you saying, well, we're gonna pretend like we got to put a test in front of your brain that it won't know any better that it's a test, right? And then and let the brain tell you what you think, type thing. And I mean, the brain's going to make of it what it makes of it because it's you. Your brain's you. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm going off on it.
It's a really complicated thing to do.
You can't-
Because there's no doubt, there's been plenty of times where I like something because I like the way it was designed, who designed it, how it was done, how it's made, where it was made, whatever, and not the actual end result itself.
Sure.
And to me, that isn't a problem. There's plenty of things I like. I'll readily tell you I like it because of one particular reason, not necessarily because I think it's a stellar product, but because I like something it does or how it was made, design philosophy behind it. And a lot of people are unaware of these things, and I'm not saying I'm not, but that is a common issue. People are unaware that they actually prefer this particular thing only because of something that doesn't actually influence its performance or its value or anything like that.
Well, sure.
And so it's
You
really
could,
tricky.
like, my wife, she doesn't care about driving a car that she's about to own for the next so many years. She's looking at the color. She's looking at what the interior looks like. Does she like it? Can she see out the rear window?
Yeah, visibility. Yeah.
Doesn't even want to drive it. Doesn't
Right.
want to drive it. Me, I'm thinking, first thing I want to do is get in and hit the gas, see what this thing will do, right?
Of course.
Complete opposite
Right.
subjective, needs.
Right.
And that's really the bottom line: is what are your needs? And anyway, yeah, I mean, I think we've gone on enough, and it's obvious we're not into like the studio type of blind testing that proponents of that tend to, controlled testing where.
Well, it's tricky because as a end user, if you're just a person that just has a bunch of gear or you want to try different gear, I would recommend blind testing. That's probably the way to go to mitigate your internal biases, to guarantee you're doing it, because I think it's an interesting experience. We've done this a few times, and so I think it makes it easier to understand what your biases are. Like,
Maybe.
There's been a few times where we did like the Harman test, they tell you, with the different bit rates. and
Yeah,
stuff
you
like
learn
that.
freak response and all
Right, whatever, all that stuff. And that kind of thing really helps to show you what the differences really are in your perception, your understanding, what you feel is different or important about a particular thing. Because plenty of people that go online and say, oh, you got to run this particular format music because this other format's garbage. But they probably haven't done a blind test. And so that is silly,
Probably
seemingly,
not.
right?
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, how many people that are proponents of blind tests have actually tried to do one
Yeah, right.
and come up with results?
A few, but yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty, I'm sure,
You'll
haven't.
find out that it's about a 3 or 4 month. If you really wanted to do
hard.
it properly,
Yeah.
you can't just. I'm sure you can go to any college student, anyone who's into statistics, anyone they have to do this shit for class.
Yeah.
They got to come up with test methodology or so. Probably the medical trade's the same damn deal. If you go for any kind of medicine, they probably teach you a lot to do with statistics and blah blah blah, how to figure out. When you create a test, you're trying to exclude bias. That's the idea of the
Right.
test, right? If you don't, the test is null. And so go for it. I'd say if you think that blind testing is something you should do, I think you should. The people who are proponents of it should try it.
It's worth a
And they
try.
should try to make the test valid, not just put a blindfold on and put 2 people in a room and go, okay, what do you hear? You need to make it valid. So you need to study, research on what it is you're trying to accomplish, and the questions have to be worded properly for the people who you are testing, so that you get the proper response. And everything's got to be thought out. And if you do enough of these tests, I would think like any professional who does testing would, not some guy on a forum proclaiming that you got to do this. But if you actually do this for a living, I bet you'd find out it's a lot of work to get the test proper.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'll bet you go through the test numerous times before you get it right on a lot of tests, because the first test probably weeds out where you screwed up or missed in terms of how to answer the question, how to set up the test properly.
Yeah, well-
you got to believe it, but you got to believe there's a lot of weeding out to be done when it comes to creating a blind test properly.
I think it takes an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish with this. If you're trying to mitigate your internal biases and you don't have confidence that you could do that, and even if you do, it's not a terrible idea to do a blind test. At least a few times. I think everybody should do it. If you're really serious about this, give it a shot. Try different bit rates. Try different gear. Have somebody else change it. You sit on a chair blindfolded. But with headphones, it's really tricky because they feel different. And you're probably going to know the difference
already
right
gonna
away,
know, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's really hard to do. So personally, we do blind testing, kind of. I don't always trust myself.
Yeah.
I rarely do, in fact. So I give the headphone to both of you
Yeah.
or somebody else. I say, hey, what do you think?
I
What
don't
do you think
always
about this
trust
and that?
myself either, do you?
No.
I'm always second
Sure.
guessing myself. That's a part of it.
But
That's,
what I find
that's
works
an internal
is if
test.
I could give a handful of people 2, 3, 4 different headphones, and I get pretty unanimous decisions on what changes were done to
Right.
these
If
headphones.
we tell you what the
and they
difference
didn't
is.
know, they didn't
Sure.
see it happen.
Right.
it's got to be pretty close
Right.
to accurate.
But again, we're trained at listening for these differences heavily.
Sure.
We know.
And it's still not easy though.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult.
Sometimes it's
yeah,
hard.
right.
Sometimes it's hard.
Because you got to listen to a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, that brings us back to the time. You can't always make that decision
much
in a
time do
couple
you have?
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to spend days with it. You know, again, it depends on the experience level too. Some people require months. Some people require years if they're at the beginning stages.
Yeah.
Of
It
really
takes a long time.
understanding it.
Yeah,
you
it takes
know?
years, I think, to really get a handle on understanding what you want to hear, all the nuances in sound, and what
Yeah.
changes can exist. And having not heard them, it's really hard to hear. It really, really is. I was playing Beat Saber a few days ago. It's a VR game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't see the little arrows on the boxes. First time I've ever played it or ever really looked at it, right? I couldn't see the little arrows on the boxes that tell you the direction you need to hit the box with the stick thing. I just literally couldn't see it. I didn't know it existed, right? And somebody was telling me, hey, there's an arrow, that's the direction you need to hit the box. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see it, right? It took me a few minutes and I realized, oh, there's an arrow on the boxes, which is strange because somebody was telling me there's an arrow on the boxes,
You
but
still
I
couldn't
just
see
couldn't
it.
see it for whatever reason, right?
Right.
And it's like that with audio. It's really hard to describe to somebody, hey, there's a change in this, like, whatever, frequency range, tonal separation, something. Like, you just start throwing audio jargon out there, it just confuses people that aren't trained, that aren't experienced, don't know what that
Well,
means,
yeah,
haven't
and
heard it.
There's so much variation to understand. It's not like you could just cover this in a half-hour session. It's kind
Yeah,
of
it's not
kind
5
of like
minutes.
going to a psychiatrist. You're going to be with him for life if
It
you
takes a
really
bit.
want to be fixed, right? I mean, I don't go to psychiatrists. I'm just saying, you watch these damn movies and stuff, and like, you know, it seems like you're a lifer once you get involved in them. You need.
It's not one session.
Yeah,
You're good
it's-
now.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Everything's good. Life is
Yeah.
good. I'll go back to life. My
Things take a
young
long time.
child.
Humans
That'd be
are-
nice if it was like that.
It'd be
though.
really nice
Yeah.
if humans could just learn like that. Maybe one day we'll be able to plug and play.
Matrix style, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be good. Okay, download me
Yeah.
all the high-end music in the world. What was Mozart? What was
Yeah, here we
what
go.
was Mozart listening for? Right when he created the music.
He probably heard it in his
Can you
head too.
download
though.
that into my head and give me that?
Yeah. I think this is enough rambling for one
Yeah,
day.
I
Yeah.
agree. Anyway,
Well, that
Sure.
yeah, that was very long,
A little lengthy.
but
Anybody that made it this far, they're a real winner in my
yeah.
book.
yeah, tell me about it. If you've watched it this long,
3 people, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, but if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Thanks for watching.